Hello there everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Elliot Webber and welcome to episode 9, or the penultimate episode of BTCC What If. Yep, of course, a series on my channel where we take certain moments or certain elements or certain things that happened within the BTCC world and we see what would happen if it played out differently. But this one is actually different because this time, similar to the first episode, instead of looking back at what might have happened, we're looking back at something that could potentially happen in the future. Although, personally for me, I don't think this is ever going to happen. But yeah, in this episode, we are going to be seeing what if Matt Neal and Jason Plato returned to the BTCC. So let's get straight into this. Now, of course, if you don't know who I'm talking about, Jason Plato and Matt Neal were, of course, two former drivers within the BTCC. They are also, of course, two former BTCC champions. Matt Neal, a three-time BTCC champion, winning his titles in 2005, 2006 and 2011, all with the same team, his dad's team, or now his team, Team Dynamics. Of course, 2005 and 2006 in the iconic Halfords Racing Honda Integra Type R. And then, of course, in 2011, the slightly underrated Honda Civic Type R FN2. Of course, the 2011 title actually being backed by Honda at the time. Matt Neal debuted in 1991 in a BMW M3. He then, of course, evolved, was one of the top independent stars of the super touring car age. Of course, he never raced for a manufacturer team until 2001, where he had a one-off appearance with Peugeot in 2001. He, of course, being an independent, he could not compete for overall race victories until one weekend in 1999, where he did take his maiden BTCC victory, of course, for Team Dynamics, in the iconic red 100 plus rim stock Nissan Primera. And then, of course, the rest is history. He would go on to race for Peugeot for a one-off in 2001. He would then return with Vauxhall for 2002, winning races in what was the secondary Vauxhall team, Team Export. 2003, he would race for Area Motorsport, also known as the factory Honda team, in the EP3 Type R, one of my personal favourite touring cars as well. 2004, it would then, of course, be Team Dynamics once again in the Honda Civic. And then, of course, 2005, 2006, and 2007 would be with Halfords Racing, the two championship years in a Honda Integra, and then 2007 in, of course, the FN2, the FN2 Civic. 2008, however, he would leave his Team Dynamics, and he would race for Vauxhall for 2 years, or 888 Racing, or VXR, whatever you wanted to call them, racing the Vauxhall Vectra. VXR partnering Fabrizio Giovanardi, Tom Onslow Cole in 2008, and then Andrew Jordan in 2009. 2010 to pretty much his final year in 2020. In fact, yeah, so from 2011 to 2010, to 2020, he would race once again for his dad's team, Team Dynamics, of course, would later be now his team. And of course, would have Honda backing. In 2011, Matt Neal would take what was his third and final BTCC championship, and of course would share Team Dynamics success with Gordon Shedden and, of course, Dan Camish. And yeah, he retired in 2012. Retired in 2020. He didn't officially retire. Matt Neal did just say that he was taking a sort of sabbatical. However, due to the fact that Matt Neal has not been racing full-time for 3 years, I do not see Matt Neal coming back, and especially with, of course, the rumours that Team Dynamics might not be back for 2024, it is hugely unknown what Matt Neal might do, whether or not he remains a team owner, whether or not he comes back as a team owner and a driver, or whether or not he just comes back as a driver. We don't know. But that was Matt Neal's career sort of summarised. Now let's talk about Jason Plato. Jason Plato, he debuted in 1997 with the Williams Racing Renault Laguna. Yep, the Formula One team. Williams, of course, the factory Renault team at the time with the Renault Laguna. He was partnering Alain Menu, who, of course, in 1997 would take his first of 2 BTCC championships. Plato would take a long time, but Plato would take his maiden victory in 1997. the same race, in fact, that Menu won his championship. And yeah, Plato would be once again a consistent race winner for many, many years. For 98 and 99, he remained at Williams-Renault, then of course would be forced to leave due to Williams and Renault pulling the plug on their BTCC project. So Plato, he moved to Vauxhall for 2000, partnering Ivan Muller and Vincent Rademacher for 2000. Plato, whilst would win races, he would not be the #1 driver, which we will talk about. Now, moving into 2001, of course, the new era of BTCC, he remained at Vauxhall with Ivan Muller, and of course, Egg Sport, which was the secondary Vauxhall team. James Thompson and Phil Bennett would drive for that team. And Plato would do it. Jason Plato would take his first of 2 championships, beating Ivan Muller in the last race of the season. Then after that, he did not want to return to Vauxhall after a very controversial year with Ivan Muller. Maybe one day I will talk about that season. But yeah, after not getting on with Ivan in 2001, he decided to leave, and he did other things. He left for about 3 years, and he would, 2 years, sorry, he left for 2 years. But then in 2004, he would return to the BTCC with Seat in a Seat Toledo. He would drive that car for 2 years before then remaining at Seat for another 3 years before 2006, 2007 and 2008 would be spent in the Seat Leon. A pretty underrated car in my opinion in BTCC. That was a pretty good car. And then for 2009, he had a very last minute deal with RML, or the Chevrolet team. Of course, in 2009, they were not backed by Chevrolet, but then for 2010 and for 2011, they would be. He would, of course, win his second championship in 2010 in the Chevrolet Cruze. Again, a brilliant touring car, not just in Britain, but also in the World Championship. And then of course after 2011, Chevrolet pulled out again. Chevrolet pulled out, which once again meant Plato was out of a seat until MG came back to the BTCC in 2012, and of course meant Jason Plato would return to MG and also Triple Eight Racing, as Triple Eight, of course, formerly the Vauxhall team, were now the MG team. He remained with that team until the end of 2014, where he would then move to Team BMR for 2015, 2016, 2017 and 2018. So 4 years he spent at Team BMR. 3 of those years were spent in the factory Subaru outfit, of course, using the estate or the Tourer spec Subaru Levorg GT, of course. A very up and down car. In some races it was really bad, but then some races it was really good. Of course, Subaru winning the 2017 British Touring Car Championship in the hands of some guy called Ash Sutton. So yeah, but then of course, due to Plato not really delving with the Subaru car, and not of course having apparently some backstage politics also at hand at Team BMR, he decided to leave the team and move back to Vauxhall. However, Vauxhall were not Triple Eight in 2019. They were in fact Power Max Racing. So he moved to the factory Vauxhall team, where he would win what would be his final BTCC race at the series finale in 2019. For 2020, he took a year out due to his team Power Max Racing decided just to take the year out. Of course, COVID season, so of course, and then he would return in 2021 once again with Power Max Racing, and could only muster up 1 podium, which was a big shame for Plato, considering the fact that that car definitely had race wins in it. Of course, Dan Lloyd as well was driving for Power Max, where he in fact took more than 1 podium. He took, I think, about 3 or 4 podiums at the end of the year for Dan Lloyd. So the podiums were there, but unfortunately it was only 1 for Jason Plato. And then of course 2022 was Jason Plato's final BTCC season. He was racing with Rich Energy BTC Racing, now known as One Motorsport, where once again the struggle of the car and of course the Toka engine, unfortunately Plato could not win any races. But he would get 1 final podium at Snetterton in 2022 in race 3, what would of course be his final podium of his career. Plato bowed out with 2 championships and 97 BTCC wins. Of course, that is still a record, and a record that will most likely remain for at least the next 5 years. Of course, I'm not too sure how many more races Ash Sutton's going to win in the future. But for now, Jason Plato's record is safe with 97. Of course, the closest driver actually to Jason Plato in terms of race wins is Colin Turkington, and he's only got about 64, 65 wins to his career. So Turkington, who of course, let's be honest, hasn't got long left in BTCC, I don't think so. It's unlikely Turkington is going to catch that or get anywhere close, but certainly I do think someone like Ash Sutton or Tom Ingram are going to get close to that race win record, especially Ash Sutton, who I think is now definitely pushing, he's definitely getting to 40 wins, I believe, in his career. He's going to get close, isn't he? He just is. But anyway, yeah, so that's a little background on the two drivers. Now let's talk about how they could or would return in this scenario. Yeah, so now, of course, we have to talk about how these two would return. Would they return in the same team? Would they return as teammates? Or would they just return at different teams? Well, let's have a bit of fun. Let's say Team Dynamics announced for 2024 that they are going to be returning in the BTCC for the 2024 BTCC season. Something that I am praying happens. I would love to see my favourite team back in touring cars, but who knows at this point. So yeah, and as they would announce Team Dynamics' return, well, of course, Team Dynamics would announce their return, they would also announce that they would have 3 licenses. Yep, so that means 3 drivers, 3 cars, 3 licenses. And yeah, I also think they would return with backing from Honda. I do think that if Team Dynamics were to come back, they would come back with Honda. And so with that, they would also get the brand new Honda Civic FL5 Type R, of course, the brand new shaped Civic that came out last year, or this year, in fact, I believe. Of course, as we know, the FL5 is already a race car. It is, of course, available in touring cars in TCR spec. Of course, I've spoken about this many times beforehand. Of course, a race winner in the World and European Championship, also a race winner, close to being a race winner in 2023 in the UK. Unfortunately, that is yet to happen, but I'm sure we will see the FL5 winning races next year in TCR UK. So yeah, factory backing, 3 drivers, 3 cars, and of course, the brand new car and 3 drivers. So you're probably wondering, well, Elliot, Team Dynamics, they're coming back with a brand new car with factory backing. What's the lineup going to be? Well, my lineup is going to be, on paper, what looks to be a good lineup. My lineup for Team Dynamics' supposed return would be Gordon Shedden, Matt Neal, and Jason Plato. Yep, in this scenario, we are going to put Gordon Shedden, Matt Neal, and Jason Plato all in the same team, because that's just asking for fireworks, isn't it? Of course, Gordon Shedden and Matt Neal, they of course have been the greatest friends and the greatest colleagues, but also they've had their rivalries before. Go back to 2011 at Alton Park, where the unthinkable happened. Matt Neal broke the sacred unwritten rule of motorsport. He accidentally crashed into his teammate Gordon Shedden, ironically gifting Jason Plato the win in that race when that happened. Yeah, I know, crazy. And of course, in 2015, Jason Plato and Gordon Shedden had a phenomenal championship battle in 2015, where Gordon Shedden would come out on top to give him his 2nd championship. Jason Plato, though, of course, we know him and Matt Neal don't get on. Well, they used to not get on. Of course, they get on now. I'm sure they can even call themselves friends nowadays. But yeah, this team, I think, would be great. However, we do have to talk about results, and I do not see this team performing very well, even with the new cars. I think Gordon Shedden would definitely perform the best out of all of them, and I'm going to explain why. Of course, out of these 3, Gordon Shedden is my favourite driver. He is, in fact, my all-time favourite touring car driver. So I'm going to be a little biased, but even so, Gordon Shedden is the youngest out of the 3. Not only that, he's had the most recent races in BTCC. Of course, last racing in 2022 with Team Dynamics. Gordon Shedden is, in fact, you know, and honestly, I'm going to be honest here, I think he is the best out of all of them. Okay, that might be a little bit biased. But yeah, I do think currently Gordon Shedden, he is the youngest out of the three. He is the most experienced with the hybrid out of the three, technically, and of course the youngest, which means I think theoretically he will be the best. Of course, I'm not saying Gordon Shedden is young. He is no spring chicken. He is in fact in his 40s now. But even so, Shedden, you know, had the most recent races out of the three. Plato has not touched, I don't think he hasn't even touched a single race car this year in 2023. Matt Neal, of course, he has done some racing. He was, of course, at the Silverstone Classic a few weeks ago. He was at Goodwood as well in the revival and the members meeting earlier this year as well. So Matt Neal has been doing racing, but he hasn't been touching anything near a modern day British touring car, as same for Jason Plato. So honestly, I'm going to predict Gordon Shedden to beat the two, but who's going to come out on top out of Matt Neal and Jason Plato? That is a discussion that I'm going to leave to you guys in the comments below. Yeah, a sort of a short one, just a quick summary on how Plato and Matt Neal could or would return if they ever were to. Do I think they are ever going to return? Unfortunately, no. I think team dynamics is still up in the air about their return, and I think Matt Neal, of course, with the unfortunate loss of Steve Neal earlier this year, I think Matt Neal is pretty happy actually running team dynamics. Not, of course, because they don't just run as a race team, they also do have a business. Team dynamics is the business as well. So I think Matt Neal is currently just trying to figure out what to do with the race team whilst also trying to run the business side of team dynamics. So as a race driver, I don't see Matt Neal returning. I think as well 3 to 4 years out of racing full time is going to hinder him. Not only that, I'm sorry, but Matt Neal, as much as I love Matt Neal, he is far too old, I think, now to be racing in a competitive level. No disrespect to, of course, any historic racing or any part-time historic racers out there, but BTCC is for sort of the youth per se. Of course, you can still be in your 40s and in your 50s and still be in British touring cars, but I think to be fully competitive, it is for the youngsters out there. And as for Plato, to be honest, I don't think Plato wants to come back. I know, of course, there were some rumours that Plato was going to return for one more year in 2023, but honestly, it seems to be he's just not interested in coming back to race anymore. I think he finally knows that he is nowhere near as competitive as he was. I think it was 2016, 2017 where he's just started to lose the Plato of old. Of course, we definitely saw the Plato of old in a few races when he was at Power Max, and of course, definitely in a few races when he was at BTCC Racing in 2022. But again, yeah, I just don't see Matt Neal or Jason Plato coming back, and I think some fans need to accept that. I think there are definitely a few people out there, you know, whenever I talk about potential returnees or of course now we are in silly season, of course now that the BTCC season is over, and there are still some people out there who legitimately think that Matt Neal and Plato are going to come back, and unfortunately, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I really do not see both of them coming back at all in the near future. To be honest, I think they're both happy with not racing properly anymore. I think especially Plato is happy not racing anymore. He's had, of course, arguably one of the greatest touring car careers. Of course, Plato and Matt Neal are two of the greatest touring car drivers of all time. And I think, yeah, I think them coming back just to fight for P15s and 16s because they can't really compete for race wins anymore would just tarnish their legacy. So, yeah. As much as I would love to see them come back and race, I'm happy with them not. So yeah, that is pretty much it, guys. What do you think, though? How would you predict a return for Matt Neal or Jason Plato, of course? Would you like to see him return, or are you like me? Are you just happy to see them not racing and just ready to see the next generation of touring car stars, like, of course, Sutton, Tingram, Jake Hill, and potentially even those of the future, guys like Andrew Watson and Ronan Pearson? So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Of course, if you are new around here, be sure to like this video, share with your mates as well, so it of course does help my channel grow. And of course, please click that red subscribe button, because we are firmly on the road to 200 subscribers. We gained a few new subscribers in the past few days, so hello if you're one of those new subscribers. Thank you for subscribing, and yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.